I'm excited for you to meet Donna Adkins and hear her story. I was connected to Donna by a prior interviewee, and I'm so glad he recommended her as an interview candidate. Donna is someone who has a positive spirit and very youthful vibe. Throughout her video, she provides great advice on ways to enhance her interaction and participation in the community. She also demonstrates the use of devices and technology that enable her to maintain independence in the home and out in the community. I'm sure you'll be amazed at some of the things she's able to do and how she has adapted to the environment around her. I hope you enjoy Donna's story.
My name is Donna Adkins, and I'm 78 years old, and I live in Waynesboro, Virginia. And I do massage therapy, and when I was in Florida, I did do acupuncture.
Okay. How long?
They won't let me do it up here. I mean, they won't let me have a license to do it up here.
But you were licensed in Florida
Yes.
to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why is that?
It's just restrictions. I think up here they want you to be a medical doctor or have some kind of doctor, and all I had. Before I did the acupuncture, it was I had just a massage therapist.
Okay.
And I went into acupuncture because I just thought you could do more with it than just simple massage. Mm-hmm. And so I was really interested in healing and natural healing, and also down in Florida I did took as much of that sort of thing as I could.
Okay. How long have you been a massage therapist then?
Oh, Lord. About 38 years, I think.
38 years?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you provide me with some basic details about your disability?
Sure. When I was born, I had no pupil in my right eye. It was just white. And then I had a congenital cataract on the left, and I had 2/3 of an optic nerve and a misplaced pupil, which kind of looked like a keyhole. Okay. And when I was 2 years old, they took the right eye out so I wouldn't go blind. So the left eye wouldn't go blind in sympathy with the right. Mm-hmm. And I could see. I was partially sighted. I graduated from. I did go to school for the blind for 4 years, then went back into public high and graduated. And when I was 39, it got to the point where I couldn't read print anymore, even with special glasses, and I had couldn't distinguish colors anymore. And the cataract had gotten just so thick, and I could tell if it was night and day, and I could see the house next door to me or something like that. But I always said I had no useful vision. I couldn't read anymore, and but I did know Braille. But you just don't get things in Braille. So, right. But I opted to have the cataract removed because I couldn't even see cars until they were right up on top of me. And I lived in Tampa for 24 and a half years, and the traffic down there was just wild. But anyway, so I opted to have the cataract taken off, and the eye pressure, he couldn't get it all out. He aspirated it, broke it all up and tried to peel it out, and he couldn't get it all off. So the eye pressure went up, and the doctor put me on pressure medication, and that dropped the eye pressure too low. It's like deflating a basketball. Okay. And so that took the sight in my left eye. Okay. That just left me totally blind. I have a plastic eye on the right, and then I still have my regular eye on the left, but it's just I can't see out of it. Yeah, everybody wants to know, how's come you're blind? When I first started in massage, because I didn't do massage until after I couldn't see, and then I couldn't get work. You could. So my husband, well, he was my fiance then. He said, well, why don't you go into massage, because you don't have to see to do that. And so I did. But when I would meet a client for the first time, they'd say, oh, well, how'd you lose your sight? Are you a diabetic? And they think, diabetes is the only thing that's going to take your sight. And I'd say, no, I'm not a diabetic. I'm just, this is what happened. And I explained the whole thing, But anyway, that's...
So at what age, you said 4 years you attended a school for the blind, correct?
Yeah, I did 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Well, I started out as in college prep, in the academic course, because I was thinking about going to college to be a school teacher. Well, I was in Pennsylvania because I was living in Altoona, Pennsylvania. That's where I was raised.
Okay.
And I went to the School for the Blind in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And Pennsylvania, and they discouraged you. You can't be a school teacher in public school, because when I was a kid, I just always, played that I was a school teacher, and I'd either play with my dolls that way or other kids that way, and I was always teaching school. Well, and my parents kind of encouraged me to, do that. And you can't teach in public school because you don't see well enough, and you won't be able to handle the kids, and blah blah blah. So I kind of lost interest, and I went and changed. In the end of my sophomore year, I changed to the business course class, and so I couldn't get 4 years of business in 2 years. So that threw me over an extra year. And so I did 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th there, and then I took my my second year of 12th grade in public school.
Oh, wow. That must have been a kind of hard
Well,
transition.
I went through 1st to 8th grade in public school.
Okay.
So it was just like going back. And I couldn't see the blackboards, but the teachers would let me walk up and look at the board and go back. And, I always had a front seat and sit down and write the answers if they put the test on the board. In high school, they more or less read the questions and, gave us a time to write it down, so I didn't have to worry about that.
Okay.
But, I was just always used to being around sighted people, because I never, until I got totally blind, I never counted myself as being blind. And that was the hardest thing when when I went to the School for the Blind in Pittsburgh. They told us that you're all blind. You're
Right.
You may not be totally blind, but you're legally blind. And I was never treated like a blind person at home. I had to do things that the other kids had to do. I had to do housework. I had to do dishes. I had to do, outside things like we had. When I was 11 years old, we moved the country, and we had goats and we had cows, and I carried water, and I helped to mow, and just different things like that.
Yeah.
And so I never thought of myself as being blind, and that was the hardest thing that, I kept saying, I'm not blind. Some of these other kids, and I'd take them to church, walk them to church, and I had some friends that were Catholic, and they'd say, well, would you walk me to church so I can do confession? And I'd do things like that, and so I just never thought of myself as being blind, and I never did until I started really losing my sight, and then when I got totally blind, then I accepted it because of being, and I knew Braille from being in the blind school, and that helped because I didn't have to learn that all over again once I lost my sight. And it's easier to learn stuff when you're, things like that when you're a teenager and when you're younger. And so I was really thankful. All I had to do was brush up on it, because once I learned it, I never used it. We were allowed, if we got permission from a doctor saying that using print books wouldn't hurt our eyes, we could use print. And we didn't have to use Braille in school. But I had to learn it. That was part of the curriculum, and I had to learn it. And so my eye doctor said, no, it won't hurt. And I had these telescopic lenses that brought the print up real big. So, there was no eye strain or anything. So I went through school using print books. And then when I lost my sight at the age of 39, then I just had to brush up on it a little bit. I knew the basic, I knew the alphabet, but they have different contractions that, to make it so that you don't have volumes and volumes. And so that's the thing I had to kind of brush up on, because if you don't use that, you'll, forget some of that. So I brushed up on that. I know I'd been told not to fool around with that cataract, but I was losing my sight anyway. And I always said I had no useful vision, but I didn't know I could have got a guide dog. There's one school that'll give you a guide dog when you can see a little bit, and I didn't know about that, and so I didn't get a dog, and I was starting to, I couldn't do travel, and I tried cane travel, and I would veer, and, I said, no, this isn't for me, and, I didn't have I guess, patience I had patience because I wanted to go out, but I didn't have, I couldn't walk straight, without with just the cane and all. And so when I lost my sight completely, the first thing I did was go get a guide dog so I had my independence back.
Okay.
Because when I could see, I just went everywhere. I'd ride the trains if I wanted to go somewhere. I'd hop a train and go, and ride buses, and and the hardest part of losing my sight was just being where I couldn't be independent and just get up and go when I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And so with the dog, I could do that, and I've had 4 guide dogs.
Okay. Do you have one currently?
No, I've got arthritis in my shoulders, and I couldn't, wouldn't be able to stand and pulling on my shoulders. Okay. If I can get that straightened out, then I may do it again. But no, my last guide dog, I think she was I've had a German Shepherd. That was the first one. He was my best worker. I loved that dog. And then I had my first one was a Doberman. Okay. And she was stubborn. Then I had, and then I went to a school in Florida because we didn't have a school when I went down there, and I had to go to a school in Ohio, and I got my first guide dog from a school in Ohio, and she was a Doberman. Well, then I got my Shepherd. They opened a school in about 70 miles from Tampa where I was living, and we had I got a German Shepherd, and he really worked really well. And then after that, I got an Australian Shepherd. Well, I had the Australian Shepherd when we moved up here. Okay. We moved her up with us. And then the last one, I went back down to Florida to get my last one, and she was a Labrador, black lab. And she died about 6 years ago, I think. Okay. And so I haven't had a dog since, and I just feel lost because you can't always get somebody to take you where you need to go or what right. you have to do. Mm-hmm. And I mean, even just to go to Kroger, and I'm not good with a cane, so I'm just not, But I bought a car so that and I can get a driver to, if you have your own car, they don't mind driving you around a lot. Okay. So I first we got a truck so my husband could get to work because he don't see well enough to drive. And then I wanted a car instead of driving in the truck all the time, and I got a car, and I can usually find somebody that drives us around in the car. But now the guy I have now, he's willing to go anywhere I need to go or do what I need to do, but I end up paying him $10 a day to run me around. Okay.
How did you find someone to kind of take you around? Was it like a service or
No, what I did was at first I advertised in the paper when my husband had to go to work, and he was paying $10 a day, $50 a week to go to work. Okay. And so we had the truck, and I advertised in the paper, and I got a nice girl. Well, then she got sick and couldn't do it, and then a friend of ours, one of my clients knew a elderly man was retired, and he lived a couple of blocks down the street, and he did it for a while. And we paid him, and then through other people, I found out people that was willing to do it, and for my husband. And then what I would do if I needed to go grocery shopping, they'd take him to work in the morning, and then they'd bring the truck back, and then they'd come back to get the truck. And if I wanted to go grocery shopping or I needed to go anywhere, what we would do is they'd come earlier and take me, and then I'd stay in the truck till we'd swing around and pick him up. Okay. And a couple of times I had a woman, and we'd even go to Harrisonburg and do shopping and stuff like that, and then we'd drive around and pick him up and come home, and he'd unload the truck and that sort of thing. So I've always been able to make it work, mm-hmm. Somehow. But this last driver now, he was driving for the TED car here in town for the Valley Program for Aging Services, and he still does. Okay. But I said to him one time I was picked up, and I was kind of being squashed in. I had to drop my husband's hearing aid off at the where he got it so that they could fix it, and then I had to go back over and pick it up. And so I was saying, I said, boy, and they worked me in and all that. And I was saying to the driver, I said, I've got a car and a truck out there, nobody to drive me anywhere I need to go, and I've got to depend on, the service, which I was glad to have, but it just wasn't always convenient. And a couple times I would, we'd have a doctor appointment, and she would say, well, I can't find a driver, you'll have to, so it was either cancel an appointment or try to get a friend to do it or whatever. And so I told him, and I said, and I can't always get to go where I need to go when I need to go. And he goes, well, I'll drive you. So that's how I got him, and he's really good about, doing it for me. And with the TED car, you can only go, if you have to go shopping, you go, to the store for groceries and come home. That's it. Because they have so many people need the same service, so they can't run you all over town all in the same day. Or if you need to go to the bank, that's it. You go to the bank and come home. Where when you have your own driver, I can take one day and do everything.
Which is really nice.
Go to the bank, and I can go, I don't have to go just to Walmart or just to Kroger. I can go to the bread store and get my bread cheaper, and I can go to Sharp Shoppers, and what they don't have, then I can either go to Walmart or Kroger or whatever else. If I have something to drop off at Goodwill, I can have them run up to Goodwill, We take about from 9 till noon. We take about 3 hours. I try not to keep him out too long. And we take 3 hours and run around and do what I have to do, and one day a week, or sometimes it's, if it's not convenient for him to do it, it'll be like one day every 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. But I try to get everything done so I don't have to keep running.
Right, that makes sense.
Well, I can do most anything that I could do before. I just do it a little slower.
Okay.
I mean, I have a gas stove I cook on, and I was, I'm afraid of gas. I've said to people, I'm afraid of gas. How do you do it? Well, I just don't bend over the gas stove when the gas is on, and I keep it low, or if I have to have it a little higher, I stand back and use my hand to, turn it up or down. But I don't, I'm just extra careful. People that don't see, and people say, oh, you shouldn't get up on a ladder if I have to crawl up and, get something out of the top shelf of the cupboard. Well, you shouldn't do that. You can't see. You'll fall. No, I'm extra careful. Sighted people fall. My husband gets mad about this all the time. Sighted people fall because they're not careful. They take their sight for granted. But if you can't see, you're extra careful. You're a little slower because you have to be in order to keep from having accidents. And so, I do just about anything that a sighted person. Of course, you can't drive, and there's certain things you can't do. But anything that around the house I can do, but it just like I say, it's slower. And going out, I can go out and walk with anybody. And there's times when I was in Florida, there was people, women that didn't want to look like like they were kind of weird, so they wouldn't hold my hand or let me hold their arm, but they'd grab my purse. So we look like a couple of purse snatchers. But I can do stuff like that. I can walk with other people, and I can walk just as fast as they can. A lot of people think you can't see, so you're going to fall, so we're going to walk real slow. No, I can walk as fast as anybody else, and and they'll say to me, you need to get a handicap sticker for your car. And I say, why? There's nothing wrong with my legs. And I told a couple of them, just because you're too lazy to walk across the parking lot don't mean I can't do it,
Yeah, very true.
So, it's just, they're so afraid of your handicap, and they don't need to be. I mean, it's just, I've got everything under control. I know what I can do, and I know what I can't do. And if I can't do something, I'll tell you I can't do it.
Yeah. You've had a lot of time to experience that.
Oh, yeah.
So, did you make any changes to your home? I don't know how long have you lived here in this home?
I've been here since 99. We moved in December of 99, so it'll be soon 19 years.
Okay. Did you make any changes before living here?
No.
No? Okay. What about...
I mean, we made improvements. Now, the house wasn't like this when we bought it.
Okay.
But, I mean, the bottom step out there was on the front porch. He had to kick it in place before he could step up.
Okay.
And there was, instead of the nice rails like we had, there was like a pipe, to hold on to go up the steps. And it was real wobbly,
Okay.
So we put a new porch on, and I mean, we just did anything that anybody else would have done. Not
Right.
because we're handicapped, but because we didn't want to be sued if somebody fell off the porch or, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And we painted the house and, did put the wood on the walls and that. But that was because we wanted to, not
Okay.
because we had to.
Right. But I'm sure the railings did help a lot, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Coming up
Yeah.
the stairs.
Yeah, well, they had railings, but those pipes just weren't that safe for anybody, Yeah, so we put the handrails on this, the wooden handrails, and they look better anyway,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But as far as the fence was already up,
Okay.
so we didn't have to put the fence up or anything. And if I like when I walk down to the put anything in the trash can, I can go down pretty straight to the trash can. Coming back, I'll come up along the shed and go over to the fence, and because I veer a lot and then I don't see where I'm going,
Right.
and so I'll go to the fence and I count where the poles are put in. How they come up over the top. I'll count those, and when I get to the one that's going to get me to the porch, and I just walk over to the porch and come up on the porch. And that's
Okay.
the way I do that. But like I said, we didn't have to put the fence in because it was already here.
Okay. And how about inside the house? I noticed that you have stairs.
Yeah, I have no problem going up downstairs.
Yeah. But do you have a railing or anything? Was there a railing there before?
There was a railing there before, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, nobody wants to fall off the edge of the steps, and it's
No.
the same railing as was there before. We just happened to like the wood in this place, and so we just kept all the. We did put new steps in, and that's only because the old steps. Well, we wanted the natural wood steps, and the old steps had carpeting on. When we took it up, somebody had painted them white.
Oh, no.
And so we had put hardwood in the hall upstairs, and we kind of wanted the oak steps to match, and so we just put the oak steps in. It wasn't because we were afraid to fall on the carpet, because
Right.
sliding on the carpet or anything. It was just improved it because we liked the looks of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then using certain appliances, so the dishwasher and the microwave, like you showed me, and the washer and dryer, what kind of adaptations did you have to make to those to be able to use them?
Well, on the microwave, we used that PUFFY, and we had the numbers marked, and then it's got like seven levels of power. So if you're going to do a beverage, you don't want a high power. I've tried it, and it just splashes it out. So you just push the B for beverage. So I have the B marked for beverage, and there's one on there that's for to keep warm, and so I have that W on there for warm. You couldn't put too much on because the it's not a big space, so we had to just kind of abbreviate things. And so then when I go over to do it, and with all the numbers, and then we have the start and the stop, and or the cancel, and so then I can feel where the numbers are and what power I want, and then I can push the start, and if I need to cancel anything, I can cancel it out and stuff like that. Now, as far as the dishwasher, I don't have a Touch-O-Matic dishwasher. When I bought that dishwasher, the one that was in here was it ran for a while, but then the motor burned out, so I had to go, and I got a Sears dishwasher, and it has the the round where you would push to start it. I can feel those, and I've just memorized where the different ones I wanted, so I never did have that marked. I just memorized them, and I memorized where start was and cancel and stuff like that. So that, and the same with the washer. I just memorized the position of where I would put the handle, or the what you call it, to start it, and then pull it out and get it to start. I just kind of memorized all that.
Okay.
And as far as the stove, I don't have it marked either. I just turn it to the left and it comes up high, and then I just keep turning it down around to the towards the right, as far as just counterclockwise until it gets to where I'd kind of like to use it.
Okay. So it's kind of like you got the appliances and kind of practiced using them and getting used to them,
Right.
and that's how you were able to...
No, I didn't show you my pressure cooker.
Okay.
I saw it on TV on Home Shopping Network, and I was telling my husband. And I have had the pressure cookers that you could use on the stove, but somehow they'd always blow the top. But this one, it has the start. Well, it has a start, and then it's got a button that if you push it so many times, so what you want, like if you want to keep warm, you push it once. If you want, say, like beans or something, if you're going to do a pot of beans, you put it in there and you push it 5 times. Or if you're going to do stews, you'll push it maybe 6 times, and then you go over and push start. So I don't have to worry about, and it's just all automatic. It'll beep at you when the pressure goes up, and then after when it goes over into warm, as it's going down, it'll beep 3 times, and then it will. And then you just let the pressure go down, or if you want to, you can push the valve and just let it go down quick. I usually just let the pressure go down automatically.
Okay.
And stuff like that. So I can use even a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
I just make sure I get one that's safe, you know.
Of course, yeah. And I did see that you showed me the clock that you have that...
Yeah, that's a fun thing. My husband said he don't know what he'd do without it. And we can't read the outside thermometers. So I have a clock in there. It's a thermometer and clock, and you press it and it'll tell you the time. And if you want the inside temperature, it'll tell you that. It'll even tell you the day and the date, but I can usually keep up with that. And then you push it again and it'll tell you the outside temperature.
How long have you had that for?
Oh, let me see, about, I must have had that then 10 years.
Okay, all right.
There's a place called Speak to Me, and they have all these different appliances, different things that talk and beep or whatever.
Kind of automated.
Yeah, and what I didn't show you is I have my thermostat that's on, we heat, down here we heat with oil. And it was a gas furnace when we moved in, and when gas prices got so high, we switched to oil, and we saved a lot of money. But in the meantime, Speak to Me, they'll send out a CD with all their new products on. Well, I saw where they had a talking thermostat. Mm-hmm. So we went, they're low expensive, they're like $200 and some at the time, but we put it up there, and it will tell you, you push a button and it'll tell you the temperature in the house, and what temperature you have it set on. And then there's an up button and a down button, and you can go up by 1 degree, or you can bring it down by 1 degree. And it audibly tells you, so that you can set things yourself. You don't have to have somebody come in and set your thermostat for you.
Okay.
And so I have one upstairs. Now upstairs we didn't have any heat upstairs when we moved in here. And about 5 years ago we put in, we had these little heaters, you put in the room or in the hall or whatever. And that didn't exactly do a great job, but we did put in central upstairs. And so I have a heat pump and for the wintertime, and I have the central air up there. And I have one for up there too.
Okay.
And so then for correspondence and that, I have a computer, and it's got it talks. So if I have to, if I push any key I push, it tells me, like if I'm typing and I want to make sure I'm not making any mistakes, and I don't really want to proofread, it'll tell me every letter that I type, and then if I hit a wrong key, I can back it off.
Okay.
And
really nice.
It also has, and it does everything everybody else's computer does, but it talks to me. It tells me what program I'm on or whatever. And then I have a program that anything I scan, it will, puts it up on the screen, and it'll read it to me also.
Okay.
So I can do books. I can read books and print books, because they just don't have a whole lot in Braille anymore, to keep up with it. So I can read print books. With that, I can read the mail. My husband also has a closed circuit TV that he can lay something under and make the letters real big. He can still see it well enough to use that. And so between the two machines, but my computer and his closed circuit TV, we can do our own mail. We can do our own bills and things like that. And I can go to the bank, and if I need it, I have checks that have the raised lines and raised lettering, so I can put my finger on the line and I know, go to pay to the order of, and I can write my own checks.
Okay. And
but if we need a check, another kind of check, my husband doesn't, and so if he wants a check, I'll go to the bank and I'll get a counter check for some of our bills and do them that way. And the ones that we can do. Not especially online. I'm not real good at doing anything online, but anything that I can phone in and do off a debit card, I do it that way too.
Okay. Donna is able to maintain much of her independence with the use of assistive technology, such as the thermostat and computer that she previously discussed. The next clip shows Donna demonstrating how she uses other Audible devices to assist her in maintaining her independence in the home and out in the community.
Okay, now what used to be a big thing for blind people would be colors. They used to have people come in and tell them, what color maybe the shirt they have on or something like that, and they'd have to find a way to mark it. Well, now we've got this handy-dandy color identifier, and it turns on, and you can put it up against the
dark red.
And so I use this all the time. And you can take it shopping with you and put it up against the fabric. It will identify any type of fabric. Another thing for blind people was money. You used to just have to trust everybody. If you were making change in a store, you used to have to trust that you were getting the right change. Now we have a money identifier. And the money identifier is this little thing here. You can keep it in your wallet, your pants, or wherever. And I will show you. We got some money here. And you put the... Oh, and it will... now, if you get a bill that's a counterfeit bill, it'll say... it won't identify it. It'll say something like error. So if you get a bill that says error, you better have somebody check it out.
20.
There's a 20. And he told me 20. And, let's see, I just got this from the bank the other day. That's why it's not in the right places. Okay, and then... $10. And I always buy my wallets where it's got sections. So I put my 20s in here, my 10s over here, I put my 5s in here, and my 1s back in here. So once I identify them, they're in separate sections. So when I go to the store or I need to get money out, all I have to do is say, well, okay, I need to get the 5 out, so I'm gonna I'll reach in that pocket there and pull out a 5. Now, another thing too is, how do you keep your groceries straight? How do you get in your, how do you keep spices and things straight? Okay, so I have a handy dandy little marker here. Let's see. Okay. It's called a pen friend, and you can turn it on, and when it beeps, it's on. And what'd you tell me that spice was?
That is chives.
Chives, that's right. Okay, so that was one I hadn't marked yet. So we're gonna mark it. So then when I wanna, okay, come on, yeah. Usually they have little round ones. When I first bought it, they came in all different sizes, and I used my little round ones up. But these are adhesive. It'll stick to thing there. Okay. Now, there's a button down here at the bottom you push. Chives. I want to see if that...
Chives.
Yeah, see? And so when I put it in the cupboard and I want to go get my chives, I turn on my little pen because I've got a lot of spices in there. I do a lot of cooking.
Yeah.
And so I just...
Chives.
See?
So you'll know that's
And
the
I'll know
chives.
that that's chives, yeah. There's not much around here for recreation, really. When I first came up here, there was not even hardly any transportation. And Charlie Downs, which you've met, he called me and said somebody had put my name in. And I was only up here about 6 months. And he said, we have a disability board here in Waynesboro. I think it was my counselor from the Department for the Visually Impaired, and I was looking for work and everything, and he said that you might be interested in joining our board as a blind person, because he said we don't have any blind people on our board. We've got wheelchair people, and we even had a deaf girl for a while, and we have other disabilities. We don't have any blind people. Would you be interested? And I said, oh yeah, because I figured that would get me, known in the community, and I meet more people. So I said, sure. So we did, and they met at night at first, and he had his secretary pick me up because he was coordinator for the Disabilities Act, the ADA. And ADA coordinator, and he had an office over in the city building, and we met over there at night, and he would have his secretary to at that time pick me up, because she was secretary for the board too. She always did the agendas and different things like that. So that's where I first got started, and we tried to address different things. We were the ones that put in the buddy ball for the kids.
Okay.
And we put the the buddy ball. We put in the fishing pier, for the handicap, so they could go out even in the wheelchairs. And we did a lot of brought in a lot of things, because when I first came here, we just didn't have anything.
Right, there wasn't much you could do.
No, there wasn't, and there still wasn't. And I know I was fighting for public transportation, because we had it in Florida, and I lived when I was in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where I grew up. When we moved to the country, we had bus service within a half a mile of the house. We would walk up to the main highway a half a mile, and we had the blue and white bus coming down from up the mountain, and we could get in town to shop, and if you didn't drive. And us as kids, if we wanted to go to the movie, on a Saturday, and my dad was a railroader, he wasn't always home, we'd just hop the bus and go down. If we wanted to go see Grandma, we'd hop the bus and go into town. Well, I went to come up in Florida. We had bus service in Florida. Well, in Tampa, but I come up here, we had nothing.
Yeah.
And so the disability board and that, we got together and we started canvass people. So many of us took a bunch of names and phone numbers of people. I think Charlie got them out of the crisscross directory, and we would call and we would say, if we could get bus transportation here in town, would you use it? And you'd be surprised of all the elderly people would say, well, I can't drive anymore and I'm stuck. Yes, I would use it. Absolutely. So we did get the CATS bus running, and we had, different places where they'd pick you up and drop you off, and things like that. So we did get bus transportation.
Okay.
And when I had my guide dog, I used it. Now I, use either the TED car, because they will walk you in. They're not, curb to curb, but they are, they'll come, well, I don't have them come up. I know people that have them go up to the house and ring their doorbell and say, I'm here,
Okay.
But I meet them out. I know what time they're supposed to go. I stand out there between the car and the truck, and they pull up, even if they are going the opposite direction. They'll pull across the street, and I'll go over and go in, because the street isn't that busy. I can hear the cars coming, and I know not to cross then, or they'll come out, meet me halfway and open the door. I'll hear the door opening, and they'll grab me, and I'll get in the van that way. And I always tell them, leave me off between the car and the truck, and I can just walk straight and walk in the gate and, you know, that
Right.
sort of thing. Unless I have a lot of groceries. When before I got my driver, when I was between drivers, then I would go and get my groceries, and I'd always have 3 or 4 big bags, and instead of having them carry it in for me, my husband would meet me out behind my car, and they would walk behind the car, and he'd come over and get all the bags out and carry them, and I'd carry maybe one, and I'd hold on to him, and we would just, you know, get up on the grass, and we'd come down that way, and that's the way I would do that. So there was, you know, I was just had a way of doing it, but I would help get the bus service here, so it was something, and all the other things that we got here was through the disability board.
It is evident how passionate Donna is regarding disability services and advocacy. Before the interview, she talked about how she used to travel by train and bus quite often, whether it was to Florida, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. In the following clip, Donna talks about her husband's, and her guide dog's experience traveling to the Big Apple.
A couple times we went on to New York because he knew his way around from living up there, so I got to go up in the Statue of Liberty, and I walked up all those steps without having any trouble.
That's wonderful.
Not being able to see, and so I mean I couldn't see it, but I experienced it, you know. And
Exactly.
you walked up there, and I went to the Empire State Building and went out on the ledge and went clear up to the top, and
Very
I
nice.
had my guide dog at the time. We took him up there,
Okay.
and I had the experience of riding through Central Park on in a horse and buggy, and we had the dog. We had gone to I left the dog in the hotel room, and we had gone out to supper to a real famous restaurant, and then we went to a Broadway play because I'd never been to a Broadway play, so we went to a Broadway play. We went back and we took the dog down to Central Park to potty him, and the horse and buggies were all lined up there, and the one guy said, can we give you a ride? And we had intended to do it the next day before we left, and we said, yeah, we're going to, we have the dog right now, but we're going to do it. And he said, oh no. I said, we intend to do it tomorrow. We're going to take him back to the hotel. And he was a big German Shepherd. And the man said, oh, he said, we'll put the dog in the buggy. He said, I guess he was afraid I wouldn't come back. He said, we'll put the dog in the buggy. He said, my dog likes to ride the buggy. So I said, okay. So we got in the buggy, and he gave us a blanket for over our legs. And so we go through Central Park, and my husband's singing. He studied opera for 2.5 years in New York. He never got to do any opera, but he did. His opera instructor let him do Old Man River in Carnegie Hall when he was doing a recital one time.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so he's had quite a few experiences too. But anyway, so he's sitting there with his arm around me singing Surrey with a Fringe on Top as we're going through Central Park. So we had a really good time up in New York, and so we did a couple of trips to New York. One time we went to Girard School of Music to a free concert that their students had put on in the afternoon, and that was really nice, and just have a lot of nice memories like that. That was when we were younger, you know, and could get around and everything, and Earl could see better, so we could get around, and I still had the guide dog to help. Well, sidewalks.
Sidewalks.
Yeah, see, when I would have my guide dog, it's just too hard to walk down on all this uneven grass and everything. So I would cross the street here in front of the house and say I wanted to go we deal with the credit union, and the credit union is on this side of Arch Avenue.
Okay.
And the other side of Main Street. So I'd have to walk down, cross Arch, walk down to Main Street, then I'd cross Main Street, then I'd have to cross Arch again, which didn't make a whole lot of sense, so I'd get sidewalks. Well, then you'd go up so far, and there was no sidewalks again.
Oh, no.
And then we'd have to walk after and then you'd cross the bridge, and then you'd get down there on the street right on the other side of the bridge, go up there on 250, and then we would turn in, and we'd have to walk the street going into the credit union. Well, I tried to get them to put sidewalks, at least along Main Street. I said, Main Street ought to have sidewalks all along Main Street. That's 250, that's the main drag. They wouldn't do it.
Really?
And whenever we'd have anything where they would have a forum of any kind. That was always my pet peeve. Let's get some sidewalks in here. And I know the one council member said, well, in my area, people don't want sidewalks. I said, well, at least put them on where people, the main dragon, where people walk all the time. Right. And I said, and there are wheelchairs in this town. It's not just for the blind people. Wheelchairs, it's not safe for a wheelchair to get out there in the traffic. They need sidewalks.
Yeah.
But you just couldn't get through to them. So I would love to see more sidewalks where you could, walk more comfortably without worrying about falling in a hole or, getting out in the street. And when you do walk in the street, you can't walk up along the curb all the time because there's cars parked. So you got to go around the cars and stuff like that. And then everybody's afraid that you're going to get hit. So you got to go way out of your way just to get a sidewalk to where you want to go.
Right. Well, that's good advice.
So I would like to see more sidewalks. Okay. And that would be, other than that, you can... this town's not that hard to get around in. Things are laid out. A few stores are downtown, or what you have downtown here is easy to get to, and things like that. So it's not that hard to get around in. It's just, and the library. I love this house because just down on 14th Street, and you go down and turn left, and you can go right down to the library, and that's where we vote.
Okay.
And when my husband could see better, we'd go down there and we would rent videos and, get the, books and stuff like that. I could put them in my reader and read them, and in my computer and read them, and he don't see well enough to really walk anymore like that. But we could do that, and everything was so close. Kroger 2 doors down. I had my dog. I'd go down and I'd go to the desk and I'd say, "Can somebody help me shop with my guide dog?" And could somebody help me shop? And they'd always get somebody to come out and
help you get items.
Yeah, they would get the grocery cart, and the dog would walk along with me, and I would get what I needed, and I'd always take a couple of big bags I could put on my shoulder or hold in my arm or hand, and then I'd take my guide dog and I'd walk home. And so that was real convenient. Shopping was convenient, and all that. So we just, this was a perfect house for us, the perfect location for us when we couldn't, for somebody that just doesn't drive. And the neighborhood is so nice. My neighbors would do anything to help us.
That's wonderful.
They, if they have to, like when it comes time to get our vehicles inspected, the man across the street, he'll take them, get them inspected, bring them back, and he won't take anything for it.
Oh, wow.
And he
That's
just,
cool.
And when we moved in, he come over, he saw us moving in, and he come over and he introduced himself to my husband. He said, "Now, anything I can do to help you," he said, "you be sure and let us know." And he's been more than a good neighbor. And the neighbor next door, she come over Christmas Eve and brought cookies and some things over and introduced herself. And she said, "Anything we can do." And so there's, and her and I, we, get to the fence and we talk. And if I need to borrow an egg or something, she'll hand it over. If she needs something, I'll, hand it over to her. It's just a good, this whole block is just a good neighborhood.
Yeah.
We just lucked in.
That's wonderful. So what advice do you have for businesses or community organizations for making things more welcoming for you and your husband?
Well, we... because we could see, we never had perfect vision, but because we could see at one time, we can deal with just about anything, any terrain, anything like that. When I go in anywhere, when I go to Walmart, or even Kroger, well, Kroger always helped us, but when we go to Walmart, we go in, I have, if I don't have my driver with me now, if he's taking me, he helps me shop. Okay, of course. But if I have, if I go on the TED car, the guy will walk us in and walk us to the service desk, and they always find somebody. I usually go with a friend. The two of us go together, and they always find somebody that. And if I can't, if I go by myself, to pull somebody off a cash register if they have to help us shop, and then she'll check us out and put us over on the bench. And I wait for the driver, and he comes in and stuff like that. So this town's pretty easy to get around in.
Does your disability, or did your disability, impact relationships in any way?
Not so much now that I'm older. When I was younger, it kind of did. It seemed like, they thought you should stick, you were blind, so you should stick with the blindness community, and things like that. But since I'm older, there's, it hasn't. I've got friends that don't mind, running me or doing a favor for me, or, take me to church or do errands and things like that. It's just, since you're older, I think people have better sense, and they've been around, things like you're doing and all have been done for a while, and so they're more used to being around handicapped people, I think. And they've finally realized that our handicap isn't going to rub off, and they're not going to be responsible if we trip on something or,
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
But, so I know my son's mother-in-law told me when I lost my sight, she said, well, now you need to go to go down to the blind shelter, and you need just to stick down there with those people and things like that. And I'm saying, I never did that to begin with. I mean, I went to school for the blind, but when I got out, went to public school and got back with my classmates and everything, I never went back to the blindness community. And why should I do it now?
Yeah.
So, but like I say, I think now that that I'm older, and because I was 39 when I lost my sight, but now that I'm older, I think that and people are more aware. There's more awareness of handicaps out there, and they're more aware of what we can do now, and that we're not going to be so dependent on them that they're going to have to just drop everything and do for us,
Right.
and stuff like that. So I think that has really helped.
Okay. Well, good. What is it that you wish more people knew about you?
Oh, I don't know. That I'm just an independent person.
Okay.
And that I can do most anything that anybody else can do.
Right.
Maybe a little slower, but I can do it. And that I have adaptive equipment that helps me to do, my do email and other things. And there's just because you're handicapped doesn't mean that your brain don't work. I think sometimes people think, well, they're handicapped, they can't think for themselves, or they're, slow mentally or whatever, but that's not true.
Right. Thank you for tuning in to Donna's interview. I hope hearing and watching her video has allowed you to understand her perspective regarding the experience of vision loss. I'm sure the transition from being legally blind and able to partially see the environment to complete visual loss was difficult. However, Donna has seemed to maintain a positive outlook throughout her entire life. She has been able to take advantage of transportation services and Audible devices for easier access to her environment. Thanks again from the Universal Design Project.